Good morning to you. Welcome to Sky Sports Racing on the eve of one of the great days of British racing, Qipco British Champions Day tomorrow at Ascot, and it's great to be with you for the next hour. We're dedicating the early part of the day to a preview in full of tomorrow's goodies. To do that, I'm so pleased to say that from the attheraces.com website, we have Declan Rix with us today and Jamie Lynch, our senior analyst here at Sky Sports Racing. Declan, a particularly warm welcome to you, mate. How are you?
I must have a lot of non-runners for me to get the gig, but happy to be here. Yeah, looking forward to a great weekend.
Yeah. It's great, Jamie, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, we are in the 12th year of the British Champions Day, and if you could have fast-forwarded from 2011 to see the fields and the stars that we've got on show tomorrow, they'd be very, very happy with how this meeting is establishing itself. Yeah.
In the week, Laura King, a broadcaster, she said, Declan, 19 Group 1 winners on the card tomorrow. That's just something that really stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah, no, it is. It's and as well as that, I think it's a good betting card. You know, small fields have been a bit of a blight on the season, but we've got there's no 6 or 7 runner fields. I think 8 is the lowest. So as well as class, hopefully we're going to have a good punting card as well.
No, you're right about that, because Champions Day needs Inspiral, needs Baid, needs Trushan, of course it does.
Yeah.
But it's the races like the Filly and Mares and the Sprint, which are very unusual to have Group 1 races that are so puzzling but compelling in various ways, and especially from a betting perspective as well.
Yeah, well, let's take you through the card tomorrow afternoon at Ascot, because obviously there are 7 races and there are so many superstars involved as well to look forward to. For example, in the opening race, the Qipco British Champions Long Distance Cup tomorrow, which gets the ball rolling at 1:25. Trushan is back for more. Can he win it for a third time? He's had 1 or 2 chinks in his armour exposed this year, but can he put them to bed under Holly Doyle tomorrow afternoon? What a way to start. Huge field of 18 go to post for the Sprint as well tomorrow afternoon, and Creative Force is back for more. William Buick, of course, crowned champion jockey tomorrow afternoon as well. Can he win a big one? Jamie's already alluded to the fact that the Filly and Mares is very strong. Frankie Dettori's been talking this morning about his difficult choice between Emily Upjohn, who he's chosen, versus Doncaster winner Mimi Q. They're just 2 of the big contenders. We build up to the QE2. Inspiral was nothing short of fantastic when winning at Royal Ascot. She's very, very good, isn't she? And she sets the standard in the QE2 this year. The big one itself, the Champion Stakes, and our final look at Baid tomorrow afternoon. Will he remain unbeaten up against the former Derby and King George winner Adyar? That should be a wonderful climax to the day. And the Balmoral Handicap rounds things off with a huge field of 20. Gulliver loves the track, of course. He is back for more as well. Escobar, I should say, loves the track, and he's back for more tomorrow afternoon, having won it to previously. So there we are. That is just a taster of what lays ahead tomorrow afternoon at Ascot. Your lineup in full over all sorts of distances. The one common factor is, Declan, the high quality of this fantastic meeting. People say, you know, it'd be lovely, wouldn't it, to have a 2-year-old race on the card, but I just love it as it is. We've had stacks of 2-year-old races, haven't we, in the last few weeks?
Yeah, we have. I don't know, I think I'd like a 2-year-old.
Would you?
Yeah, no, I do. I would like to see one if we could, but it's, you know, there's enough kind of group juvenile races around at the moment. You can't just be adding in another one. You know, you'd have to take one from another course, which involves a lot of politics and maybe money as well. But, you know, I think for as well as more bang for the buck for punters and patrons going in, you know, 6 races feels a little bit on the short side. Another race I think would be good, but it's very manageable in terms of form, which is always nice from our point of view.
Yeah. Definitely. People obviously find that a real easy card to navigate. Declan, you know, for the website attheraces.com and other things, you've been looking at all sorts of things. I see you looking at the weather forecast and weather conditions, humidity as well today. What's the latest news this morning from Ascot weather-wise?
They didn't have any rain overnight.
Yeah.
Looking at the go and stick readings that were given to us yesterday, it looks like it's going to be similar ground to what we had last year, which is nice. You know, it wasn't very bad winter ground like we've kind of been accustomed to some meetings there. I think if fast ground horses probably will still struggle. But one thing I did notice that the go and stick reading on the round course I thought was a lot closer to the straight track than it usually is, which means it mightn't be as bad a ground as we expect. So, which we want for flat horse. You know, nobody wants to see these good horses running on proper heavy ground, unless you're Holly Doyle and Trushan maybe. It's set fair. I think we've been lucky with the weather, so it's going to be a cracking day. Really looking forward to it.
The day itself? Any rain due on the afternoon, do we know?
If there is, there's not going to be much. But I think this time of year, the ground's probably not going to be drying out like it would in the summer. Yeah. So I think probably good to soft in places is official. I would probably edge maybe just towards on the softer side of good, like it says as well.
You want to eat Chris Stickles?
Yeah, exactly. Let's then start with the big guns in the Champions Stakes. And, of course, Baid has, in many ways, framed this whole meeting, hasn't he, with his unbeatable run. We get to see him for the last time tomorrow afternoon. He's 4-1 on favourite to beat Adiyar at 9-2, Bay Bridge at 10 and 28-1 bar those. We'll obviously ask Jamie and Declan whether there's any prospect of an upset at all on the afternoon. But Baid, Jamie, you're the perfect man to put what he's done so far into context. We know we see him having his final run tomorrow, but will he need to produce his best ever performance to win tomorrow, Jamie?
I think so, and I think that it suits the narrative that we've got that, and that's why we are so happy to see Adiyar involved in that big race. It's almost like if it was a computer game, you'd say he's reached the big baddie now in the last level, and if he beats him, he completes the racing challenge. This was the QEII Stakes, which seemed functional at the time, but our colleague at theraces.com, Simon Rowlands, who obviously his sectional spotlight is one of the most must-read articles throughout the year, it's when sectional times tell you something that your eye can't see that it becomes really valuable. Now, what we're seeing there is, you think, Declan, OK, that's a workman-like victory is the phrase you might use.
Yeah.
His last 2 furlongs there was not just the fastest last 2 furlongs of any Royal Ascot race this year, but any Royal Ascot race for the last 3 years. And that tells you about the secret power that Baid has got. He's got that characteristic that all the greats have, that he makes the difficult look easy.
And that refers to all races, not just mile races.
Sprints. Think of all the sprinters we've had as well.
Nature strip.
Yeah. Takes a bit for that to sink in, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's his secret power, isn't it? And that's always been the unique thing about Baid, is that he's bred to be this thing, and yet he's exceptionally good at this thing. But now, and only now, is he starting to do what he's bred for. And York was pretty much sensational, was it, in terms of revealing a new dimension to Baid again.
Declan, often when we've worked with Jamie and analysed top performances, flat and jumping over the years, we've often talked about a horse who's brilliant but doesn't deliver the wow factor. We got the wow factor at York, didn't we? No,
absolutely. You know, that was one of the great turf performances in the history of horse racing. I think it's fair to say, you know, he was brilliant that day. And the thing is with what he says about Baid, you know, he constantly, a theme of his whole career has been churning out these sub-11 second furlongs, you know, 3 or 4 furlongs on the bounce. All while I think when he gets to the front, I don't think he does a lot. You know, when he won it was at the Moulin, beating North of Australia last year. The minute he got to the front, the ears went up and he's like, I've done enough. But, you know, and to still churn out those sectionals while kind of pulling himself up in front necessarily, just kind of to show how good you were. But at York, when he got not a proper end-to-end gallop, it wasn't, but he finally got some pace to run at, and it just brought out the brilliance in him.
He's only twice been sent off odds against, one of those occasions this day. Last year, beating Paris Pier in the QE2, Jamie. It was a 2-1 chance that day.
And that was almost a means to an end for him as well. And considering the standing start as well, John, that's the other thing with this horse, that was only 4 months after his debut at Leicester. And he's beating what was, and what still is, one of the best recent miles we've seen in Palace Pier. So with Baid, he is unbeatable, invincible from what we've seen so far. So the question becomes, Declan, what new challenge does Adiyar pose to Baid that he hasn't faced before, and that might at least push a few of the pressure points that Baid hasn't yet felt?
Well, I suppose the question is with Adiyar, which one's going to turn up, isn't it? Because if the King George winner turns up, he's going to give him a race, absolutely, no doubt. But I just can't get out of my head how weakly he finished in the Arc. Haven't had total run of the race. Look, I know now it was proper heavy ground and you can cut him some slack. And then again, but he finished even weaker again in the Champions Stakes last year behind Sealoué. And we haven't seen him, you know, we only saw him for the first time, what was it, about 36 days ago. You know, the season clearly has not gone straight forward for him. Look, to be fair to him now, he was good at Doncaster. I thought what I liked about him mentally, he looked a lot better. A lot of the times last year, he could be slow away from the gates, but he stood in the stalls and he jumped on terms. But going up the straight again, which we'll see here, perfect time, and you'll just watch William Buick's right rein. He's just lugging a little bit. And, you know, this is while he's not under maximum pressure. He's going to be put under maximum pressure on Saturday, absolutely no doubt, by Eid and the likes of Bay Bridge. Look, I hope that the Adiyar of the King George turns up, because then we've got a proper race. But I just have my little doubts about which one is going to turn up.
We can't say categorically, but that was very encouraging for thinking, as Declan is saying, that we might see that 127 rated Adiyar that we saw in last year's King George and the Derby, because it was the 3 S's at Doncaster. He settled really well. He still had that huge stride, which is something that Baaeed can't match. And he just had a bit of swagger about him in the finish, which is important, I think, because there are those weak finishes that just play and prey on your mind from what happened at the end of last year. So in ratings terms, we can say categorically that Adiyar is the best horse and therefore the biggest challenge that Baaeed has faced.
OK, can we throw it open, Declan, and just explore for a couple of minutes the possibility of a turn-up here? Is there one that remotely looks on the cards to you?
Well, look, this is horse racing. Anything can happen. You don't know. You know, we don't. This is why we love the game, is we don't know what's going to happen. But to be fair to Baaeed, he's gone to the track 10 times. He performed 10 times. We know, in terms of ability, he's got. You know, I think I make it maybe £9 in hand over Adiyar at peak performances. He's got plenty in hand. Maybe this could be the softest ground he's run on. You know, he is. I think he's a good ground horse, maybe good to firm ground horse, just so he can utilise that turn of foot that he has. Maybe the biggest worry in some ways could be the draw on 1. If it gets a little bit messy, you know, Jim Crowley. You know, I don't think Jim's going to be getting lots of room here in stages. That could be maybe the only stumbling block, because we know there's a short straight at Ascot. If they don't go much of a gallop, you know, things could get a little bit messy. But I don't know, maybe it's hard to see him losing. But, you know, in this game, I'm never surprised by anything.
The interesting thing is tactically, isn't it, is how Jim Crowley tries to ensure the clear passage on Baaeed from stall 1, when all the jockeys will be trying to lock him up on the inside. And then we come to what suits Adiyar. And it is a real stamina test, almost a slog, as something that Baaeed might have a question mark against him. And the phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, applies to Stonehenge. He might be Adiyar's best friend. If Stonehenge is ridden like he was in the Irish Champion, and Adiyar sits on him, then it's a proactive move by Buick in play, catch me if you can, for Baaeed, because he's not going to beat him in a foot race, is he, by waiting along with Baaeed. He's going to have to try and pressure him by pushing those stamina buttons.
And we've got My Prosper in there as well, who tried to he did make all the last time in France when he ran, who was obviously trained by William Haggis. So yeah, look, it'll be interesting. It's hard to see him getting beaten, but I think there'll be a massive sigh if it does happen. But you know, he needs to turn up again and perform. Even
with the greats, there's usually a point in any point in their career where there is some jeopardy involved, and you think, oh, is he going to pull it out? But there's never really been that with Baaeed, was there? And that shows you his brilliance, is almost his immunity from any type of race, from any type of ground conditions, and from any rival so far.
Which I think lends itself, the early part of the race being as fascinating, well, obviously not as fascinating as the end bit, but really important, isn't it? From stall 1, you get that bend very soon after the mile-and-a-quarter start. So if you don't get a great position, you're stuck with it for a bit, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. You get locked up in the traffic, and therefore, if it all happens ahead of him in the relatively short straight, then he will have to be better than ever, which might propel him to new levels in terms of ratings again. So even though we're dealing in a long odds-on favourite, there's loads of intrigue, and stakes are really high with this race.
Yeah, does he win this more often than 4 times out of 5? If so, the price is probably about right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he just wins because he is so good and he is so invulnerable. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. We are dealing in betting. Which angle have you picked out for his Declan as a portion of the race?
It's maybe not a market two people are fond of. I'm very fond of. I think if you take Baaeed out of the betting here, you've got a really fascinating race. And at the price of the horse who actually interests me is the other William Haggis horse, Do By Honour. He was a good second in this race last year. I thought he was unlucky with the way the race panned out. He could be very keen. James Doyle had to take him back. To be fair, he's been unlucky with the draw again, because I think he's drawn widest. But they put some cheek pieces on him again. And I do my own ratings, and I won't bore you with that. But I've actually got him rated to a similar level as Bay Bridge, but yet he's a much, much bigger price. And if Adiyar potentially bombs out, I think it's a very open race. And I just think Adiyar or Do By Honour each way around the 10-1 mark without Baaeed is a bet I'll be looking at.
Yeah, maybe a tiny little bet with Baaeed in there as well at 33s, you know?
Maybe. Yeah. I'd hate to.
You'd be very pleased with yourself if you were right with your theory.
I'd be the only man jumping up and down in the stand if that happens. Yeah.
One other thing to keep in mind is the two other horses appearing on Champions Day have been beaten at long odds on this year. Inspiral at 1-7 in the Falmouth and Trushan at 2-9 at Doncaster. So what we see as inevitabilities is the racing game, as Declan says.
Yeah, well, he is, of course, a modern great. Baid we get to see for the last time tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. Now, of course, attheraces.com/Ascot is your home for the very, very best form study for the weekend ahead, and what weekend it is as well, with contributions from our very own Jamie Lynch, of course, with Simon Rowlands and Paul Jones just adding their degree of expertise too. And Declan Rix, to remind you, from the website, is here with us to preview this fantastic meeting. It's a fabulous bit of work again, Declan. You must have been pleased with the way that's all gone.
No, yeah, the website's good. Yeah, we're very lucky. We've got a lot of talented writers and punters as well. Jamie obviously writes regularly for us, which we're very fortunate to have. You know, Kevin Blake, Gina Bryce. Who else is there? They've all got runner guides on the website there as well. Yep. Robert Cooper, I think, as well. So make sure you check it out. It's a good resource. Stats guides as well for all the races done by Paul Jones. Yeah, so please.
How much is it a year?
Pardon?
How much is it a year?
How much is it a year?
Yeah.
In terms of me paying John to keep plugging it?
No, how much do subscribers have to pay?
Oh, the subscribers. It's free, would you believe?
It's free.
It's not free. It can't be free, can it?
Free.
That's ridiculous.
There we go. We won't mention any rivals, but it's a good resource.
The world's going absolutely crazy, isn't it? But we like some sort of form, don't we? We like some sort of order in life occasionally. And in it, we are provided with Trushan, of course, the long-distance cup hero twice, and bidding for a third time tomorrow in the opening race. He's 15-8 market leader against the St Leger winner Eldarov at 5-2. Waterville won Ireland's hugely valuable Cesaro, which picked up over €250,000 in winning that for Aidan O'Brien. Comes here off the back of that win, and Coltrane and Quickthorn, who have both had excellent years, are the next two in the market. So Trushan, that air of invincibility, though, just been knocked off him this season a couple of times, Jamie.
Yeah, the mask has slipped for a horse who was in his element and almost unbeatable for the previous 15 months. He was beaten at Goodwood, understandably so, given he was up against Kyprios and Stradivarius, but this was more alarming. Not only for the fact that he was defeated at 2-9, but also the process with which it came, wandering off a true line, head on one side, in all looking like something was bothering him. So my starting point for this race was, I think, many people's starting point, which was this race and working back from that. How can you back a horse as favourite who did that last time and was beaten at 2-9? But the journey of this race is interesting because you almost do come back to him, Declan.
No, you have to. I think he's got the best form in the race, you know, at his best. In that VT, what you just alluded to, running around, we're not usually accustomed to in that. But what we didn't see in that VT is the very start of the race. And, you know, they didn't go a strong gallop that day. And Holly Doyle, you know, she did sit a little bit too out far of her ground. I think she probably would have wanted that race back if you gave it to her. I think on Saturday, she's just got to let him stride on and let him use himself. When he won at Goodwood last year, the Goodwood Cup, I think he sat in second or third. And you know, I just think he's a horse who likes to use himself. He can be keen, so that cover would be ideal just to help him switch off. But he's keen everywhere he goes. But the big thing with Trushan is he won here last year despite winning the Cadran 2 weeks earlier in a decent time on very heavy ground. We know he's tough. I think we can give him one more chance, and if he bounces back, you know, I do think he is the horse to beat.
Would you be surprised, Declan, if Coltrane beats him again, like he did at Doncaster?
I think I would a little bit, yeah, I would, because I think Coltrane was given a good ride that day. He sat in a better tactical position given the pace. Trushan did give him a fair head start, but some interesting comments about Coltrane in the week from Andrew Balling. Actually, he was saying he worked as well as he's ever worked on the lead up to this race, and while that might be a positive, Andrew went on to say, I'm a bit worried that can be a sign that they're going to go over the top. Right. Which is a training insight I didn't know about, obviously, because I'm not a trainer. Yeah. But I thought that was an interesting line from Andrew. And then also, we interviewed David Egan on Sky Sports Racing earlier in the week, and he said that Eldarov is working probably better than he did before the Leger. So I'm wondering, are we maybe going to have two horses that are going into the race that are a bit over the top at the end of a long, hard season, whereas Trushan, we know, is tough.
Yeah. my head's spinning, Jamie. A horse working well all of a sudden is on the edge of a disastrous run. It sounds, you know, it's complicated enough, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, no, it is complicated. But let's look at the form book and let's look at Elder Elderoff,
Yep.
the St Ledger winner who is coming here and was earlier in the week joint favourite with Trushan. So with Elder Elderoff, 2 questions with him. He's going up in trip tomorrow. Will he stay the distance? Well, everything about not only this performance, but the Queen's Vase suggests so. And then we come to the angle of, is he good enough to go up against Trushan? Because this, in retrospect, and I think the more you look back at it, it was on the thinner end of the scale for St Ledgers. Not much between, 7 of them, only 5 lengths back to the 7th. He's beating a twice-race filly there in Ascot. The Godolphin, hot favourite, New London, didn't fire his best shot. So with me, I come back to the actual form book and the ratings with Elder Elderoff and say, is he good enough, or how much more does he have to do in order to bustle up a peak form Trushan? And the answer to that is actually quite a lot.
Yeah. And yet, Declan, they're very close together in the market. Some lists have them even closer than that 15 to 8 and 5 to 2, which we're showing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I would kind of still side with Trushan. I still think at that 15 to 8, there's a little bit of juice in that price. But I've got to say, I don't want to knock Elder Elderoff too much. He is a lovely horse. Like, he's got a beautiful ability to switch off, and he's got a wonderful attitude. As you just saw in that VT there, his head was nearly down on the ground. But that's maybe another worry as well with him. He's clearly a horse who puts everything in, you know. And I look at him physically, and I look at a horse that, you know, maybe mightn't stand up to race and at this moment in time, having run the biggest race of his career. I think he's going to be a next year horse again. So yeah, I look at that bet. Even Waterville, I can't believe he's as short as 4 to 1. I know what he did the last day in winning the Irish Hussar, which, like, visually it was an incredible performance. But you know, at the end of the day, it was a handicap. So just the more and more I look at this, I think Trushan is a decent bet at 15 to 8, but he's a value bet as well.
Any other business for you, Jamie?
Well, Waterville, when he won that handicap, which was impressive when you watch it, he was off 99. Don't forget that Trushan won the Northumberland Plate off 120.
Yeah.
So the question for you and all the punters at home when assessing this race is a simple one, really. Do you look at the one brushstroke, the bad brushstroke last time from Trushan, or the bigger picture, whereby you can pick out any other performance in the last 15 months would win him this and win him it comfortably? So, as I say, I went on a bit of a journey with this and immediately reacted to the recency bias of Doncaster, but actually taking a step back, I think the 15 to 8 is not only a fair price, it's probably a good price.
I was going to say, Dec, probably, you know, shortly after 1:30 tomorrow, we'll be shaking our heads. You know, Trushan went off 2 to 1, you know, and he's won 7 lengths. You know, we'll be thinking, well, how stupid were we to avoid him?
Yeah, we probably should give Quickthorn a mention as well, because
if only for the part he's going to play in the race.
No, exactly. Myself and Jamie were just chatting at the break there, and we think Jamie made a good point in the Champion Stakes about how Stone Age might be Baid's friend. We kind of agree here again that Quickthorn could be Trushan's best friend. Yep. Obviously, one's ridden by Tom Marquand and the other's ridden by Holly Doyle, so maybe they'll have their own little plan going out.
Basically, Quickthorn will eliminate the kryptonite, effectively, that dragged Trushan down at Doncaster Warning.
Yeah. No,
Great
exactly.
stuff, fellas. From the stayers to the sprinters, we must crack on. Race 2 tomorrow is the sprint over 6 furlongs. Big field here, loads to get stuck into. Creative Force, last year's winner, back again and showing just ahead of the favourite, I should say. Rohan Loves Ascot, of course, second favourite. Art Power 6 to 1 with Kinross, who's dipping his toe in the water again after his win in Paris a couple of weeks ago, 6 to 1 too. And then the double-figured horses, including Perfect Power, Brad the Brief, Naval Crown and Tenebrism. So listen, the floor's open. Jamie, where do you want to hit off first?
Let's start with Creative Force, then, because he is the favourite, and we go back to the reason why he's favourite, which I think first and foremost is what he did in this race last year. And how this race developed last year is something to bear in mind for this renewal as well, because look at where they're at. They go middle to far side. And a horse like Art Power, who went off favourite, the grey on the very far right of picture, he is compromised, like most of the high draws, with the way the race panned out. 3 of the last 5 years, John, it's happened in this race where they've gravitated toward that far side, and effectively it's ruled out half of the field. So the question with Creative Force, who looks to have been sort of primed and given a break ahead of this assignment, is the draw isn't so good for him this time. He's drawn 13. The 2 highest rated horses in the field are Naval Crown and Kinross, who are drawn 16 and 17. So it just looks to me as if this is one of those races where form sometimes takes a back seat to the look of the draw and the way that the track position plays out.
Yeah, Art Power was 4th there. The Dream, who's a massive price tomorrow, was 5th. And, of course, Kinross was down the field 12 months ago. But Kinross has been in amazing form this year, Declan, hasn't he?
He has, and to be honest, before the decks came out, he was the horse I was looking at, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he's another one. I don't think the draw has been kind to him. He's drawn wide again. Is he in 17? You know, that on what we saw last year, and more importantly, maybe more recently, what we saw at the Ascot meeting on the 1st of October, is even though the stalls that day were on the stand side, they all made a beeline to the far side, which maybe suggests, you know, those drawn low on the straight track are going to be favoured again.
Yeah, and we've got to find some sort of way to distilling this race, haven't we, when we've got a field of 18. So I think the first port of call is maybe focus on the low numbers, not only for history, recent history, but also the fact that look where the pace is. Brad the Brief in 5, Art Power 8, Go Bears Go in 9. So the hottest pace is middle to low as well.
Yeah.
Rohan's in the perfect spot in theory.
Them, yeah.
Because of his style and because he's approaching this race at the very peak of his powers again. Isn't he? He's a horse who draws you in because look at where he started. It's almost illogical to think that he started at the beginning of 2021 off a mark of 55, and here he is winning the Bengoff Stakes. And he loves Ascot, doesn't he, Declan?
Yeah, he's just, you know, I think he's in this race last year. I think is actually the only time he's blown out here at Ascot. He loves this track. I do think maybe this day, you know, given where he came from and where he made his run, he probably was on the better track. But look, the ground has come good for him again. They did finish quite slow that day. I think the finishing speed percentage on the At the Races website was about 97%.
Okay.
So, you know, that might indicate he had a tough race, but he's done well at the draw. But the one horse I wouldn't say you couldn't be too strongly keen on him because, you know, he's coming here on the back of 2 disappointing runs. But the most overpriced horse on that list for me is definitely Perfect Power, obviously winner of this year's Commonwealth Cup. Now, look, I don't think the Commonwealth Cup was a brilliant race this year, but I think the way
He was very good, though.
No, he was.
Really good with with what he did through the race, wasn't he?
No, he was, and I think you've got to give him credit for the way I think he was probably on the wrong side. The race didn't unfold brilliantly for him, and in these sprints to win you need to have, you know, you need to be around the pace, you need to get good cover, all the rest of it. But just Richard Fahey, he says he's working well again, and I just think he's overpriced.
Is he over the top then or not?
Well, that's it, yeah. We don't know. I suppose we'll find out tomorrow.
Richard did this with Sands of Marley, who was second in the Commonwealth Cup, sort of had a wobble in the third part of the season, but then roared back in this.
Yeah, and I just think of him, I think he could be a 7-furlong specialist, that Perfect Power. Like, he did win on fast ground that day, but he never really travelled in the early stages. And then it was not, to me anyway, it's easy to say now, I suppose, after Simon, but I don't think it was any surprise he didn't run too well in the July Cup on that downhill run, more of an emphasis on speed. And then I think that the Fahey team, they also blamed the ground at Deauville when he was behind Highfield Princess in the pre-Morris the Geese, saying it was too quick. He's going to get back on softer ground now. Interesting, I think Ardad, he's the sire. His dam is actually from the family of Marek. I know he was bipivotable, so, and then there is on the dam side of the pedigree, there is evidence that he might handle a bit of cut in the ground as well. He does move well, but I think as much as anything, the soft ground might just slow the others down a little bit and bring his stamina to the fore. If he's in good nick and the vibes around him on the lead up to the race, 12 to 1's a very big price.
Lovely. Marek, you just mentioned a previous winner of this race as well. So that's the sprint. Billion Mare now is the race we're going to have a look at. Emily Upjohn, Frankie Dettori said it was a fairly difficult choice between choosing her and Mimi Q, the Doncaster winner. They're both right up there in the market. You can start, Jamie. What do you like here?
I think this is a race that's the best betting race on the card. I think there are doubts about all of those at the top of the market. Emily Upjohn, she's a hard horse to back after Ascot because of the King George and because the open invitation again to do exactly what she did there. She's been off since, she's put in a hood this time, but it's that downhill run and a wide draw. Frankie's going to be after his absolute best in order to drop her out and settle her. Eternal Pearl. A simple fact with her is that the best horse that she's beaten so far is Sea Silk Road, rated 106. Every single horse in this field is rated above 106. Sela Rosa had her cup final, which brings us to Mimikyu and Ashada, who contested the Park Hill Stakes. Now, Declan mentioned finishing speed percentage earlier, which is always interesting to tell you how a race was run. And basically, barometer, if it's less than 100%, they're finishing slowly, so they went hard. If it's higher than 100%, they're finishing fast. This was 96%. Declan, this was a real stamina test, which suited Mimikyu and probably hurt Ashada by the end.
Yeah, no, it did. And I think what we should mention here was the pre-race as well, before this Angus Gold, obviously racing manager Shadwell, he said Ashada would need this run. You know, it was clearly a prep for this day. So when you factor in needing the run and also not staying the trip, it's easy to see why in terms of form figures she was well below her best. But as you said when you opened up the show, John, this is her time of year.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, I've heard a couple of people say this is a better race than last year, but who was third in this race last year?
Snowfall.
Snowfall. Yeah. There's no snowfall in here this year. It's a really, really good race, really competitive. There's so many likeable fillies and mares in here. The one thing we should mention here, don't see a lot of pace on. This could get really tactical and messy. And I think in terms of that, I think Emily Upjohn's in a catch-22 position. I'm still not totally convinced about her over 12 furlongs. I know she was a good second in the Oaks, but I think that was maybe a relative test of speed that day. You know, if she's as keen as she was in the King George as well, you know, how can you back her? She just mentally, she looked like she'd had a lot. If she wins, it's going to be an incredible training performance by the Gostons.
Guys, there's only a minute left on this race, but I know both of you fancy different big price horses for this race to run well. So do you want to sum up quite succinctly who you fancy at big prices here?
Well, I've backed two. I've backed Ashada, who you like as well. And Lilac Road, I think Lilac Road's just the wrong price, given that she's got that 10 furlong speed as well, Lilac Road, which will help if this is messy. And also, look at her last three runs. She was third in the Nassau. She was fourth behind Alpinista, and she was beating the short head in the Prix Vermeer. I think she's that price because Tom Marconde's on Sila Rosa, the other Haggis horse. Okay. But Tom has to ride her. Yeah. But that undersells Lilac Road's capabilities in this spot.
Before the break, Declan?
Yeah, I'm with the Shad. I'm hoping she can go back to back. She's good out of the gate, got good gate speed. I'm hoping she'll sit in the first handful and kind of kick on and win again this year.
Tremendous. That is the filly and mare there. Our concluding few minutes chatting about tomorrow and Ascot, Qipco British Champions Day. We've already talked at length about the races with Declan Rix from the At The Races website and Jamie Lynch, our senior analyst here at Sky Sports Racing. But, gentlemen, we need to address the question of whether Inspiral is a great price or a miserable price at around even money for the QEII Stakes. Over 1 mile, of course, she tasted defeat in the Falmouth Stakes. And Declan, does that defeat make 11 to 10 too short for you?
No, not necessarily. I think you can give her a pass that day. You know, when she won the Coronation at Royal Ascot, she put up a huge performance. You know, it was so big. It was the type of run that might leave a mark next time out. And I think we clearly saw that in the Falmouth. But I think, looking at those odds, I think she's still priced up on her Coronation, her victory. I don't know. To me, that performance is a little bit of an outlier in her career so far. You know, I think she's probably, on my own figure, she's £6 below that or what she did at Deauville the last day. And just at the prices, I'm happy to take her on. I don't want to down her too much, though, because she's incredibly likeable. She's got a wonderful attitude. She's straightforward. And as we've seen here in the Marble, what we don't show early here is she was stuck in no man's land, quite a bit away off the pace early. I thought she'd done very well to win because she was putting the teeth of the gallop early and she battled on. But I just wonder, look at her moving there. Is she going to be as good on this softer ground? What do you reckon?
Yeah, that is a question mark that she's yet to really answer. I was just really impressed by this. I know she won by only a neck and therefore it's hard to get a high rating on her, but the difficulty in this race was very, very high, given where she came from, given the pace, and given where and when she made her moves. So I thought that was really good from Inspiral. And opposite to Declan, which is part of the reason, I really think she should be 8 to 11 for this.
Yeah. And the form boosted there. Erevan, the winner in Paris a couple of weeks ago, finishing in 3rd place there. Just look at the recent superiority the 3-year-olds have had over the older horses in this race, Jamie. There are 4 3-year-olds going to post tomorrow afternoon. Check and Challenge, Modern Games and Bayside Boy. Of those, Modern Games would clearly be a big threat to them all, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it's surprising almost how Modern Games at the start of the season was the least of the big trio of the Guineas winners for Charlie Appleby, and he's made his way to the top of that list. And I think that this horse, more than any other this weekend, is the one that says, you know what, Charlie Appleby wants to win. That train is Championship again, because I think this horse is designed for the Breeders' Cup. He even went to America for that win and you're in, and yet he's here to earn some prize money. So he is a big danger, but so too is the Revenant, because the Revenant, he's made this race almost his own in recent years, Declan.
How much stock do we put on Ascot straight track course form?
Very high, very high.
Exactly. You know,
it's unique, isn't it?
He's been here time and time again, and he's always run well. You know, he's going to be more at home on the ground as well, I think, you know, compared to Inspiral and certainly Modern Games. He's trained by Francis Henry Graffard, whose team are in good order at the moment. I think they're operating at around a 20% strike rate. Now, you look at Evran winning this day in France, the Revenant second. Evran was just behind Inspiral in the Prix Jacques Le Marois, just beating the Revenant here, but for some reason we've got 11-10 Inspiral and 6-1 the Revenant. At those prices, given Francis Henry Graffard said this was a prep run for this day, I definitely want to be with the Revenant. I think he's a cracking each way bet, I really do. And one maybe small negative with Inspiral, she's drawn wide, 9 of 9. All the pace here is in the first 4 stalls. Frankie's going to have to take back and get cover. Does that mean Ryan Moore's going to slip into a better tactical position and get first run? I think that's how it could play out.
No, I agree with that. And normally, the alarm bells would be ringing with that. It's just that what we saw in France was exactly a carbon copy of the difficulty she faced. She was well away from the Japanese front-runner, Bathrat Lion, and yet overcame all of that and still won. So, look, I'm just really, really... But for the Falmouth blip, which is excusable, as we've spoken about, I think we'll be talking about her in the same bracket as Baid almost.
Yeah, so you're sweet on Inspiral.
Yeah, I do. I think she should be odds on for this.
There we are, and you can still get odds against about her. Let's have a quick word about the closing race, the Balmoral Handicap. 20 runners go to post for this, over 1 mile, again on the straight track. I like Safe Voyage. I must say, I think it's a cracking ride for Holly Daw. Not in the betting there, but 2 runs back. He was really unlucky loser at Leopardstown, so I'm happy to row in with him. But obviously, no point having experts with you if you don't ask them the view. And Jamie and Declan, who do you fancy for the Balmoral?
Look, this is very hard. I just like Symbolise, a 14-1 for a horse who was 11-2 in a similar standard race last time where he was badly drawn. I think he's better drawn this time, and Callum Hutchinson takes off 5. So he's just really good at this straight track Ascot game, Symbolise, and finished second last year. Declan?
Yeah, I can definitely see Symbolise as a going close here, especially from his draw in 8. We should mention, I think the first 6 or 7 in the betting are all drawn high, very high. I want to be with a horse drawn low because I think the paces with Johan in 3, Montalum in 4, Shalier in 11. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to stick up a 9-year-old in Stormy Antarctic.
Yeah.
He's been in really good form, and even as a 9-year-old, he still loves the game. I think he's been crying out for a strongly run mile on soft ground, and he's going to get it, and he's drawn low. We shouldn't forget, he finished 4th to Roaring Lion in a QE2 not too long ago. A while ago, to be fair, but he clearly goes well at the track as well. Couldn't believe I'm putting up a 9-year-old in a big sprint like this, but I just think with the pace dynamic in his draw, I think that could get him home.
Fascinating little line about Stormy Antarctic is that he's a 9-year-old. He's had 45 races. This is his handicap debut tomorrow.
Wow.
Oh, wow, I missed that. That's
why I'm the senior form analyst.
Yeah, well, roll your sleeves up now, senior form analyst, and deliver the nap and next best on tomorrow's glittering card.
Yes, so Nap is Inspiral, as I mentioned, 11-10 for me. I'd make her 8-11. I'm just really believing her. And Lilac Road is a price thing. It's a really open race, and Lilac Road has got a far better chance than 16 would suggest.
I like Tenebrism in the sprint, 12-1. Last time she ran over sprint distances, she won the Cheveley Park in amazing fashion. And Mimikyu, I think, will go really well in the filly and mare. Declan?
Yeah, it's going to be Truchant for me in the opener. I think maybe 11-8 is a better reflection of his chance of winning. And then the Revenants, I actually really like. I think he's grossly overpriced. You know, I think we're only going to get 3 places with the bookies, but I think he's a cracking each way bet at 6-1.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Truchant, Inspiral, Tenebrism are 3 naps for tomorrow afternoon. Now, of course, Jamie will be there tomorrow. Our morning starts nice and early at Ascot. Do tune in 10:30 onwards. There'll be a detailed preview show with lots of special guests along the way as well. And then we build up to Champions Day itself from 12:30. That was a fantastic way to start Friday. Our thanks to Declan Rix from the At The Races website. Declan, great to see you, mate.
Cheers, lads. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for everything. And Jamie, thanks as ever for all your sterling work. That was an awful lot of